Hello and welcome to the Warhammer podcast. I'm Dan.
And I'm Jack.
And today we're going to be asking the question, is 40k too negative?
Yep.
Is it toxic? What causes it? How can we make it more positive? But first of all, let's dive straight into the news. There's been loads, again, of exciting reveals this week, starting with some new minis at the Las Vegas Open.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we've been mentioning on our previous podcasts that's coming out is the mandrakes that are coming out.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So good, right?
Yeah.
So if anyone hasn't seen, there are some new pictures being revealed for the Night Lords, isn't it? And the mandrakes that are from Dark Angels? Not Dark Angels.
Jakari.
Yes,
that's the Dark ones. Eldar. So the the box is called Nightmare, which is and it's a new kill team box.
Quite fitting as well.
It is.
I like it.
So, but it's very exciting for 40k players because they've got some new Night Lord sculpts, which are Chaos Space Marine chapter, and they look incredible. They've previewed those before, and we've covered them.
Yeah, we've covered those ones before. But these mandrakes, though,
Yes, mandrakes, as I've mentioned briefly in the past, they've been out of print for a long time. They're resin fine cast models, which
very bad.
Yeah,
very bad.
So these new plastic sculpts are absolutely
looks so good.
Yeah, they've kept the real look and feel of the mandrakes, original mandrakes, which made them better, which is exactly what you want.
Really do.
So yeah, as I mentioned previously, I'm on a model buying ban at the moment. So I've painted everything, but I was like,
oh no! What if I buy it?
Yeah,
and then I give it to you,
and then I give you some money.
Yeah, exactly. For maybe the burger that we had the other day.
Yeah.
Like something like that. But yeah, no, I mean, like these models look unreal. And to be fair, something that maybe not isn't mentioned too often, but they don't look that hard to paint.
Yes,
if that makes sense. I think you can get away with a lot of contrast paints with these ones, and you can make them look really nice.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I do think GW is thinking about this, and they seem to be starting to design for contrast a bit more, don't they?
Yeah. I think their contrast ranges have been improved over the last few years as well to make it better, make it more accessible. So since they relaunched them, I think it was last year, and I bought most of them now, and I think they're good paints. I haven't found a bad one in there really. Yeah,
some of them are phenomenal. But yeah, that was really good. But also, if you are a Tau player and like reptiles,
some more good news coming out from the Tau side of things, right? There's that massive new box coming out. The hunting pack is what it's called.
Yeah, Kroot hunting pack. So there's the Kroot are getting a Kroot reboot in a big way, which is. I would love to hear your thoughts on this because to me, Kroot have always, because you have a collection of Tau from back in the day.
Very small.
Yeah. And to me, the Kroot have always been they're like, if they're in a list, it's like cannon fodder or action monkeys. They're almost a little bit of a joke. There were there wasn't much you could do with them, whereas this looks like they're going to be almost a full detachment.
It does, yeah. It's like a supplement kind of thing where it just bolsters the army up. Because I just had the Kroot Flesh Shapers, I think it's what it's called, or the Sharpers. Or Shapers, what they're called.
Yeah.
But those ones, I had like a box of I think I just had like 24 of them when I was younger, and I picked them up and such. And to be fair, I picked them up, and I remember going to the shop and playing like one of my very first games at a Warhammer tournament, and I remember this very clearly because I walked in, I had my Kroot, my Tau, my some of the transports for the Tau, and some of the fire cast and fire warriors, and I brought up Farseer. I remember the GW guy leaning over being like, "You can't field him." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "Oh," me being like 15, like 14, 15 at the time. Though I was like, "Oh, but he's a cool model. He looked really good." Like, you can't have Kroot with Farsight. Farsight hates them, and I was like, can I play it? I'm just here to play it. I don't remember if I was. I think I was able to play. I don't think they were that harsh on us being that young, but that was like a very vivid, a very good memory that I had back then.
It's one of those. We'll come on to this when we talk about negativity, but there's the barriers to entry to 40k can be better.
I think people put up barriers that don't need to be there personally. Exactly. But again, we can cover that in more detail later. But
the box itself,
yes.
Do you want to run through what's in it?
I certainly can there, because it's actually a very, as you mentioned before, a very good selection. So we've got the Kroot carnivores, got the Krootox rider.
Yeah, I mean, a Kroot riding a giant lizard is just...
Can't go wrong, right? Yeah, they look so good.
Yeah.
We've got the Kroot rampages, again. Quite like to see those ones. I mentioned before the Kroot Flesh Shapers.
Yes.
The Kroot War Shaper. which appears to be the leader of them as well, which is looking really good. And alongside that, they've also displayed like a Tau codex as well.
Yes, so this reboot is part of the not that I'm salty at all, but Necrons, we got our codex and we got 3 new models.
Yeah,
Tau are getting a whole box set.
Yeah, well, and we lost models. We're net down.
Yeah, net loss.
On that one.
Yeah, I mean,
they got a massive.
But like as you said, I mean, if it's going to enable Tau players to play in a whole new way. And you raised the point when we were talking about this off camera that it's almost like getting a new faction.
It is, yeah. I reached out to one of our Tau friends asking, like, do you reckon like this could be its own codex? And he was like, as it stands now, no. Based on the amount of models that they have pretty much less than Votan. So
if you've got even less than Votan, you're in trouble.
Right, exactly. So, but I could definitely see them becoming its own army in the future. I definitely think they're probably one of the last ones if it was to be discussed. Because I know like the Emperor's Children's are going to be probably ahead of those as well. But I think it definitely could be, and I think it would be a one that people would enjoy buying as well.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. There's a lot of good lore there. The models, there's only so many ways I can keep saying this, but the new models are brilliant. Like, they have done a fantastic job of giving the crew they're building on their existing lore, but they've given them real identity, and they just look cool.
They do look good. They look really nice. It reminds me of the Tyranids ones, because obviously Tyranids have like Rampagers. They've got Carnifexes, which are carnivores kind of thing. So it's almost similar stuff.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
but
I mean, it's not like GW to reuse names and
no, not like them. No, they're writers.
Yeah,
they're up there.
Yeah. I mean, they would never do.
Again, this is the negativity. Is that negative? It's a good point, though. You know, is that me being negative?
Well, this is true. Maybe
certainly could be.
I would say we're
so easy.
Yeah, I would say we're constructively critical.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
But yeah,
very good. Yeah, again, the models look lovely. Box looks nice.
Come back to the codex. So you spotted something which I completely missed here, which is really interesting as well.
Yeah, so if you can all cast yourselves back or pick up your own codexes for 10th edition at the moment and look at the Space Marine one. I've got one behind me there now, but the current format is like a big picture up front with a very faint symbol of the faction behind. So obviously the Necrons have the Necrons in front, and then they're very symbol behind. But this Tau one, A, they're using old artwork, and B, they've got their main Tau like logo right in the center, which is kind of a massive contrast to the other ones that are out there.
Yes.
So are they going with a different type of format now, do you reckon?
Yeah, because the other ones have got like it's like a transparent logo, isn't it? And this one is very, very obviously like it's literally front and center, isn't it? The artwork is interesting because it almost looks like all they've done is put a color filter over the old codex because it's kind of brighter, but pops a bit more.
That's it.
But it's the same picture, isn't it?
It is the same picture, and I think it's such a shame because obviously the Kroot one's got all this new artwork for the Kroot. Like, I mean, if you look at that box set that's on there, just take a snippet of that.
I mean, it's a beautiful front for the box.
That Kroot on the front of that would look lovely.
Yeah, it would be perfect
as a codex.
Yeah, I'm guessing maybe that would confuse people because he's not a Tau technically.
That's
there'll be lots of Farsight rage. But you also noticed, we'll come on to this in a minute in terms of Dark Angels, but you noticed something similar with the new Dark Angels codex as well, didn't you?
Again, very similar, completely different layout of it. So on the left hand side it's just all black, and got like obviously the checker mark kind of going down the left hand side with obviously I'm not too sure of his name, but obviously then just the Space Marines on the front of it.
Yes.
But again, just a completely different format.
And it seems odd, like, unless they're showing us the limited edition front covers, but you wouldn't, if you were advertising for the Dark Angels box set, which we'll come on to, if you're advertising that, you wouldn't show the limited edition codex because that wouldn't come in the box, would it?
Well, surely not, because obviously the other limited edition one was £60, right? Yeah. For the
I mean, if it's got a limited edition codex in it and it's 130 quid, it's
a bargain for the models, right? Yeah. But then obviously sell on the codex and get a codex for 60 quid online, or scalpers out there probably sell it for more.
Aye.
But yeah, and I mean the box itself as well. I haven't discussed it, but the box looks amazing for the Dark Angels.
Yes, this one's called Deathwing Assault, and it's this one it's
got like 22 models in there involving the Blade Guard veterans, Terminators, led by I think it's
Belial, I think.
Grandmaster of the Deathwing.
Yeah.
And obviously again sported with the codex out there.
Yeah,
looks like a nice set.
It's a lovely set. It's a 135 quid for that many Terminators, and Blade Guard is a good deal. With a codex, it is a good deal.
We mentioned this before as well, but obviously the Terminators themselves have a bit more depth to them, don't they, opposed to the normal Space Marine ones.
I think in general, Dark Angels have more. The models have a bit more character just because they're allowed to. They've got like extra robes and cloaks.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you could argue Black Templars have in a similar vein as well.
Yeah, true.
But I do think that they, lore-wise, Dark Angels, because of their grey or conflicting allegiances. That's the word. So they've always kind of slightly stood apart from all of the Space Marine chapters.
Yeah,
and the models reflect that, and they've done a very, very, very good job.
Is true. It's a shame that it's up for pre-order. So if you want to go, actually, never mind, it's sold out. Just like many things on the GW website. But yes, it's sold out straight away. Very similar, unfortunately.
Yeah, they just can't get stock levels right. It's really bad, but also I do think there's a problem with bots. There was somebody.
Yes,
we're talking about this a little bit more detail. Actually, I won't say anything now, but we'll talk about that.
Spoilers for later.
But speaking of spoilers, the whole rules section of the new Dark Angels Codex leaked on Reddit, and the someone in the inner circle leaked it, and there's so much salt from Dark Angels players online about this because they're absolutely fuming.
Well, people are still buying it.
Yeah, I mean, the box set's definitely going.
It's sold out, so people are still interested.
But the rules look. Allspecs Tactics, if you like, his videos is just released as you'd expect. Like the leaks came out on Saturday afternoon,
so
and
he
done a video by Saturday night.
I was going to say, he released it probably Friday.
But it's well worth a look if you want the detail. But the TLDR is basically that they've nerfed Deathwing Terminators. They've nerfed the Lion. He's no longer got his -1 to wound. There's a side grade for a few other things, and there's a few units which you would have expected, to be fair. I don't think it's a surprise, but there's a few units which are not in the codex, which are the models that they don't make anymore.
How does it feel, eh? Yeah, that's what we feel like, as Necron players.
The issue, I think, is if you think about the timings of this, is we're still only about 6 or 7 months from when Leviathan launched. So this codex, the same as the ones that have already come out, would have been written before and gone to the printers before Leviathan actually came out.
When it came out, that makes sense. Yeah,
this
all
this
that
is
knowledge that they've got so far isn't in this codex. Basically,
yeah, that's exactly it. This was written during the hot mess period of Index Hammer, if you like. So
where Eldar reigned high.
Yeah,
they still are, but yeah.
Well, we know how imbalanced that was when the game launched. And the positives are, if you are Dark Angels players, hold the line basically, because I don't think it's going to be as bad as it looks.
Yeah,
the codex might be a bit mid. That's fine, but the proof is always going to be in the points.
Yeah,
it's always in the points.
And obviously they're very adamant of changing the points at the minute and like keeping the abilities.
Yes.
So like I mean, we've seen how fast they've got the game back in balance now. So yes, this codex might come out and seem a bit low down on the charts, but once they get the balance right, I think it'll come straight back.
From a legacy Dark Angels player's perspective, there are things that will annoy them apart from that. Like some of the models they've lost are quite iconic, and they've made some changes to the loadouts of what Terminators can take.
Yeah.
So the old style of collecting and then also playing those Deathwing guys was in big bricks of 10.
Right.
I'm pretty sure, if tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think they've reduced that to a maximum of 5. So you can,
right.
so you can't, but also you would take them with mixed. You could take a mixture of assault weapons, like they would often have Thunderhammers and Storm Shields.
Right.
Whereas now they're limited to what Terminators can take.
Oh, okay, right.
That's a long way of saying that. It feels like GW's making sure that you can't play your old Terminators and you've got to buy the new ones. But it doesn't seem necessary when the box set sells out on day one.
Yeah.
If you're if you love this hobby and you love a faction, if there's a box set comes out, you will buy it.
Of course.
Even if you don't need it, you will buy it. So they don't. I don't feel like GW needs to be pushing players like this.
Yeah, that's true. Like
so
they'll naturally come, basically.
Yeah,
like there's no need.
Yeah. And that kind of level of salt online was kind of leads us into our main discussion topic for today.
It does, yeah. And something that you noticed as well is that guy from Midwinter Minis.
Yes. So what we're going to talk about is the 40k community too negative? And it was prompted by something that we both saw on Instagram from Guy at Midwinter Minis, who posted a little video on Instagram that he'd basically made a post complaining about the state of the GW website, which is awful.
Yeah.
and that had become his most successful post in ages. Like he talked about painting a life-size Space Marine, and this post about the GW website had done better. And Guy's perspective was that, you know, it feels a lot like on Instagram that negativity sells, and we thought, you know, is that a reflection of us as a hobby? And we thought it was worth discussing further.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, negativity is not just, you know, solely for Warhammer. It's in every single hobby. Of course it is. And it's not, that doesn't, you know, transpire. It doesn't just stick to hobbies. It's across the board, you know, work, friends, even media even does all this sort of stuff.
Media's a big culprit,
It really is. But, you know, it does, you mentioned it briefly just there, but drama, to me, drama sells. Unfortunately, that's, you know, when back in 2010, the clickbaity titles of YouTube, that when that was kicking around, people were complaining night and day about those types of videos coming out, but people still click them.
Watching them,
although the people were complaining about them, they were just as bad. They were like, well, I'm going to watch the video. I'm going to still watch it. But
no, there is definitely there's research done on this that shows that we've been locked in a social media negativity spiral for some time for a lot of people, and you have to try and consciously break it. And it's not just in the hobby, it's in our general lives, so that if you are attracted to bad news on your feed, and you watch a video or read a post about that or engage in it, then the algorithm goes, that's the kind of content you like, and then shows you more of it, and it just becomes
the norm for yourself. You pick up your phone, you scroll through, and you will just see this negative stuff.
But in terms of the hobby, you picked out some interesting causes of what's some of the key areas where we do see some negativity.
I think this is just like the main kind of sections, and if I'll just run through the list, we'll maybe just talk about each of them separately. But like for me, toxic players. Now those could be down to maybe meta chasers, which might come across quite toxic, or simply just bad sportsmanship, and that's primarily for tournaments that we'll talk about later.
Yes.
The next one is scalpers. This one I think just grinds on everyone because for me, this one benefits nobody. No one, well, apart from the scalper, of course.
So, I mean, we'll talk about this in terms of GW has been a little bit, but Winter's, if you don't know Winter's SEO, go and check out his YouTube channel. I don't know why he's called Winter's SEO, but he is a Warhammer content producer. He's brilliant, but he did a live video the other day, and he was talking about somebody on Reddit was bragging that they'd bought 30 copies of The End of the Death, like limited edition, 30 copies online. So there was no limit. That was a limited edition book, but there's no limit to how many you could buy. So he managed to get in a queue and bought 30 and was like, just to sell, just to make money.
You'll make loads, though. You'll make absolutely loads.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So there's
stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just bugs the heck
I mean, there's the economics argument is it's supply and demand. Like if we all stop buying things from scalpers, then the scalpers market will dry up.
Yeah.
So even if we really want something and it's sold out, should we hold back from that and then just starve these people so that it stops?
It's hard, isn't it though? Like we can't always do it, and you know, I mean, like what's the most recent example of this was, I don't know if you just mentioned that actually, but the Horus Heresy book that's just came out.
End of the Death,
that's just came out. It went up for £50 on the GW website. It's now on eBay for $300.
Yeah,
which is just absolutely wild, and people are still buying it for £300.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like this guy who bought 30 of them, he will have paid 1,500 quid for that.
Yeah.
But if he can sell them at 300 quid each, he's going to make £1,000.
You make so much
10
money.
grand, sorry. So he's going to make like £8,000 profit.
Easily.
I mean,
and then obviously we've talked about the last podcast was the Combat Patrol magazines.
Yes.
Is that just going to be scalpers just taking out multiple subscriptions to then sell them on?
So there's the trial issues out. It's in a couple as we got this correct in we'll chalk one in the correct column.
Let's go.
We said that they were going to put it out to retail just in a couple of areas. One of them is Manchester. So it was available in like places like Tesco and that, in the magazine racks.
Like WH Smith and that.
But people were immediately, the first edition of the magazine is $2.99 first issue,
$2.99,
and people were putting it on eBay for 35 quid.
Why? We can't keep letting them get away with this.
No, it's
and the thing is, it's probably sold, right? People have probably bought it.
That's a scary thing. I mean, it's got I think it's got the Space Marine captain and one of the Tyranid character models that are in the Leviathan box or any of the starter sets.
Sure.
So you could go on. I think you can buy a starter set for about 35 quid. So with a lot more models in it. But it was just it is obvious that it's becoming an increasing problem rather than it's not going to go away.
Like the changes that GW are making to their website kind of isn't working still. And obviously we're talking about Combat Patrol. It's just opening the doors for more.
Somebody noticed the other day that they basically put an "Are you a robot" on there, which they should have had from the start. They seem to be trying to get rid of bots, which are used by scalpers, obviously, to get these products before us mere mortals can get them, and that's why a bot can make that transaction in less than a second or whatever, whereas we're still typing our credit card details in. We're never going to win.
We're not. And then even I was on the website to pick up the made to order stuff.
Yes.
Now, I was there before 10 o'clock and I was on there like 5 to 10 and I was on the website browsing away. I kept refreshing it every like 30 seconds just to make sure I got my right place. But as I got placed into a queue, I still had an hour wait. I was like, an hour wait? I was like, I've been here since past. I was like, I don't understand.
So this I think this might even warrant a video on its own, but I was talking to some a lad that used to work for me actually, or work with me, who's an expert in this kind of thing, and he was absolutely wetting himself at how badly they've executed this. Like there is no hardware or software reason in this day and age why the queues are so bad for an online ordering system. They just simply haven't invested in the capacity to deal with it, and that's if you look at any other business of the site, I mean, their market capitalization, GW, is something like £3.4 billion. They're a multi-billion-pound company, and you have to wait an hour and a half in the website to buy something. Like, there is no company on that level other than them that where the experience, where customers have that bad level of customer experience.
I think you've absolutely nailed it. For this level of company that GW is at, this should not be an issue.
No,
this should have been. This is an issue that you see for a new upcoming company. There
are inherent problems at GW because it doesn't have any real competition.
Yeah, it's true.
If you are, let's say, we look at fashion retail, for example. Not that obviously, as you look at me, I can tell I'm an expert in fashion retail. But if you're Primark, right? If you cock up your website that badly,
you said like a Primark of like a Space Marine chapter. Space Marine Primark, I was like, if I was one of them, the shopping brand Primark.
The shopping brand Primark. Or, if you're Robert Gulliman's Primark and you cock up your website that badly, your customers will go to New Look or somebody
like
else.
ASOS and such like that.
Yes, but we have no other option. So if you can go and buy a lot of stuff through an independent game store, etc., which I would definitely advise you to do if you can. But some of the stuff that's limited edition, or for example, the things you were trying to buy which were like out of print models that come back into circulation, weren't they? Necron models, you can only get them from the GW website.
Exactly. And only every season or something like that as well.
But the UX is awful, and that is an example where that is warranted criticism.
It is. Yeah, and I think that's a very good point as well, though. Like, that's criticism, right? And I think people nowadays maybe don't structure their negativity in the right way, so it just comes across as just being negative, like overall negative. But maybe the point that they're trying to raise could be good and could be, I guess, adapted. But as long as it was structured in the right way as well.
I think you've touched on something there that's really at the heart of how culture is changing, and the way we've mentioned this before is that online culture is very binary. There is very little nuance and there's no in between. Things are either amazing or shit. That's it.
And there's no grey area.
But also I do think whether you do it consciously or subconsciously, and all of us do this, I'm not like saying I'm above this, but when you post something on social media, either consciously or subconsciously, you're thinking about how many people are going to engage with it, like it or react it. And you might not even realize you're doing it, but I think people amplify their dislike of something, because if you post this and say, I'm a little bit knocked off about this and it's not quite as good as it could be, nobody cares. But if you put, I'm raging about this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me,
it's like you've got to pick the complete opposite side to get you have to go to the extremes, get content or to get engagement. Because if you're in between where it's like, it was good but it could have been better, people are like, well, you're just wishy-washy, you're not giving your honest opinion. It's like, no, that is my honest opinion. It's like, just because I'm not on either side doesn't mean it's not honest.
A few videos back we did we talked a bit about Warhammer Fest, and that was roughly our position, that there were some things that they could definitely improve, but we actually had a good time.
For what we went for was fantastic. But the tournament was great.
If we'd done a video about slamming it and about how bad it was, it probably would have
might have done better.
Yeah,
because everyone likes those clicks to be like, oh, who are these talking crap about this?
That is definitely the point I think that Guy was making. Is there is definitely more if you go to either of those extremes, like this is the most awesome.
I've raised £100 million for charity. Yeah, fantastic. Clicks. I want to see what it's about. Oh. Yeah, F all the charities. Kind of thing. Like, what's he effing about? Kind of thing.
I like to kick dogs when I'm walking down the street. So some people are going to click on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't.
And then and then the thumbnail's just like big shoe kicking dog. It's what gets the clicks though, which is unfortunate.
Jack's dog Jess is just out of shot down here, and she's looking at me like,
let me see your feet down. So yes, that's kind of like the scalpers, right?
Yes, so scalpers, awful. Next on your list.
Yeah, so this one, personally, I think this has gotten a bit better over the years. I think it was quite bad back in the day, personally, so I want to kind of get that out there first. And again, this is like the in-between where it's like, you pick one or the other. But no, I think the Games Workshop selling tactics, you walk in and you used to get hounded. And yes, you kind of still do, but for me, it's quite more relaxed. Like, I've been in the last few times and I walk in and they do ask, what armor are you collecting? But that's what they've got to do. You get that in most shops. Any
retail has almost any retail will adopt those similar type of tactics if it's there's like a level. So if you're going into a sweet shop, they're not going to come to you and ask you what sweets you're into. Exactly. They don't care. Then it's a commodity. You're going to go in and buy them and get out.
Get what you want. Exactly.
If you're buying a stereo or a car or Warhammer, then you can expect that this is a proven tactic to engage with you and find out, so that the salesperson can work out what you're into and therefore kind of tailor their what they can try and sell you.
Of course, because they know what you're interested in, they can help. And to be fair, the majority of times they're really helpful when it comes to, like, especially when I go in for paints, I really struggle for finding what paints match other things. So I go in, I'm like, I'm like using lead belcher, what's a good highlight? And they spend time being like, well, this one's really good, this will give you this effect, this will give you this effect. And I had no idea this actually existed, but then the Citadel paint app was available, and he rocked it up, and he was like, oh, well, if you're using like this steel kind of color, search steel, and then it shows you what effect it looks like and what paints you need to buy. And I was like, this is so good. Like, you've engaged in conversation. Yes, you're like, yes, you are getting me to buy more stuff, but he's being very helpful as he's doing it.
Yeah, and the best will in the world, he's not going to hit his £10,000 a month sales target by selling you a £5 pot of paint. It's genuine. It's genuine. It's what a hobby shop should be. It's genuine help and advice.
It's building up, and we'll talk about this later on, but that's building up the community. In my eyes. So there's that one. I don't want to spend too much time on that one because, again, there's not.
I mean, when my son started getting into it, we used the shop. They did a lot of tutorials, and they would ask us at the end, right now, like every time you'd finished a game, is there anything else that you need? But that was as far as it got. The only time I felt we really experienced a hard sell was at the painting things, when they're like, he brought some brushes in from home, and they're like, you can't use them there. They're not our brushes. You need to buy some brushes.
Okay, that's it.
And then they were like, you need to buy
Citadel at the end premium brushes.
Yeah, and at the end of it, they would quite aggressively trying to sell in paints, and that's the only time I've really experienced it. But generally speaking, a few years ago, they were much more in your face than they are now. It's a bit more subtle.
It was like, as your foot in the door, they were like, you want the new box set, don't you? It's like, I don't collect this. It's like, you need it, you want it. Here's the paints to go with it.
You're coming out crying with the box full of Sisters of Battle that you don't want.
But I think it's gotten better over the years, but I think that's still, and I think this is the reason why I'm bringing it up for now, and a lot of people might disagree or might agree, being like, look, it has gotten better, but I think for me, that is still what people remember. And I think that's what, again, adds to more negativity about it. It's like, yes, it was a thing. They've now maybe gotten fixed. It's now better or got it fixed, but people still remember it.
It's like, I would liken this to being at school when you're a kid and you have a teacher. If you have one bad experience with that teacher, it kind of imprints. You remember it.
Yeah,
so you're like, right,
exactly. F that teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to teach. Yeah. I don't want to do that subject again. Yes. That's how that can come across.
And I think you were mentioning earlier on about an experience that you'd had where the guy just basically come over and said you can't use Farsight.
That sticks with us. And again, I don't remember the outcome of it, so I can't comment fully on it. But like, that stuck with me because I'm just like, I didn't buy any more Crute since then because I love Farsight. So I was like, well, I'm not going to buy any more. And I've just sold my Crute there now because I don't need them. But it's just
mine. I lived at the time in a little town in Yorkshire, and our nearest Warhammer shop was in York. So me and my pal had to physically get on the train, go to York, to toddle all the way through York out to the other side to get to this Games Workshop. And the guy that ran it, I can't remember his name now, but he was a big guy with ginger hair, but he'd gone bald, so he had a bald horseshoe like this, right, and then really long ginger hair on the sides, like he just didn't care. Like, I'm just going to pretend that the middle's still here.
Yeah.
But he absolutely hated kids. So that time in the hobby, it was considered very much an adult's
game
pursuit.
Kind of thing, yeah.
So we'd go in there without obviously, we were probably only spending £5 or £10 because we're kids, like your pocket money for that you'd saved up for a couple of months or something.
Sure.
So I understand we're not going to make him rich in that, but he was actively hostile to having us in the shop. There'd be nobody else in the shop, but he did not want us in his shop.
Yeah.
And he kind of ended up pursuing the hobby to spite him, in a way. He ended up we would both go in. To start with, we were a bit like, well, if he's going to be like that with us, we'll be a bit huffy with him. Yeah. In the end, we just went the other way and we're like, "Morning, how are you?"
Yeah. So then what you're saying is that we need negativity in this hobby to get more people in.
Yeah.
Is that now what we're seeing on this?
Yeah.
one?
You just fight it out of spite. Yeah. But yeah, there's.
I love it.
But I do think those as kids, there is more. They're 100% a lot better at it, obviously, than when I was a kid, and probably from your experience when you were.
Yeah.
But there is more that they can do to nurture. Like, there shouldn't be rules lawyering kids that bring models in. If your kids are so excited and brought cool models in, just let them play with the models.
Yeah,
it's not a tournament, is it?
No, exactly. Now, to be fair, now we're thinking back about kind of stuff that I just remember being again, not so much negative, but I guess what I perceive as negative.
Yeah.
I remember building my first set of Terminators that had just I guess a squad of 5 of the HQ, and that had the missile rack back on, and I remember just being like, "This is really cool. This looks class." So I just put it on the HQ, like the guy with the sword and the shield, but everyone else had the heavy armament, the heavy guns and such. Again, I remember putting them down, being like, "Oh, this guy has this," and then again, the guy comes up and is like, "What's that doing on that?" I'm like, "Oh, it looks cool." He goes, "Oh, it can't be on that. He's the leader. He has to have that." And I was like, and he's holding some snips, and I'm just like. No, I like my model, please. Leave my model alone. But it's just listen, these little things kind of stick with us.
They definitely do. And for if you're a pretty strong character, you're quite a resilient person. But if you were, if it was happened to somebody that was less like that, they would just wouldn't go back.
Absolutely, yeah, they would have been like, "Oh yeah, pass the snips," and I cried.
Yeah.
And the guy's sitting there "Oh well, now that you've snipped them off, you need a new box set." But yeah, so it's an interesting topic because there's just so much to kind of discuss about.
There is. I mean, what
we talk about maybe the first topic that we kind of wanted to get into is 40k welcoming?
Yes, I mean that kind of leads on to that. You're right in terms of. We've talked a little bit about, and the shops have improved absolutely. Local gaming clubs and gaming shops are great places, but I do since I've been getting back into the hobby, almost all of my experiences have been positive.
Yeah, me too. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm sat here with you because one of your friends I bumped into in the Warhammer shop in town when I was playing with my son, and he was like, "Oh, it's great to see you, father and son, playing Warhammer together." He's like, "Actually, I've got some Space Marines I don't want. Does your son want them because he collects Space Marines?" And he gave us met up with him a couple of weeks later, and he just gave my son a bag of Space Marines. He's a lovely lad, and then that's how I ended up in your circle.
That's it.
And that is one of the most overwhelming positive and experiences that you, and especially my son as a young person, could have had, and he was over the moon.
Well, it's great, isn't it? Because there was that little interaction. I mean, we're doing a podcast now.
From there, you've got you're stuck with us now. Yeah, I'm just wriggling my way in.
Can I get rid of you now?
No, it's what happened actually was one of our pals was having a little mini tournament, and Rob had invited me and persuaded you lot to let me come. And then what happened?
And then Rob didn't turn up. And then you knocked on this. Obviously, to you, you knocked on this random person's door. Yeah. A random person answered. Let you into it. You know when you're don't meet strangers. Dan met 5 strangers in a house by himself with his 2 boxes of Warhammer. You walk in and your first question's Where's Rob? It's like, oh, Rob's not here yet. No. Jack, Dan.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was great, and I think
it was just a funny story as well.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
I do think 40k in general. We talked a little about this also in terms of being welcoming. It has a high bar in terms of to entry. So, and I would break this down into price, skill, time, and additional outlays.
Yeah.
So that it's not a cheap hobby to get into in terms of how many minis you got to buy.
For sure.
There is a lot of skill required, not just to play the game, but to build and paint the models.
Yep.
It's very, very time hungry, as we found out.
Yes, it is.
And then there is all the stuff that they don't tell you about, which my son got quite frustrated. He nearly left almost after he'd started, because he was like, right, I've got these Space Marines. What do I do with them now? And then he's like, well, you have to spend like 40 quid on paints and brushes and snips to be able to actually build them and glue to make them. Yeah. And there's a lot of hidden costs when you're young. And then if you think about, unless you want to play Warhammer, which kids don't want to play. Yeah. I mean, they will do, but they want to play proper Warhammer. But then you need a battle mat. You need
space.
You need a space of plate. You need all the terrain. It's an awful lot. There are a lot of barriers in most other. We've touched on this in other podcasts, but in almost any other walk of your life or hobby life, pretty much what you get is out of the box. Yeah. So the entry level is pretty low. There are obviously skill levels above that. Like if you play like Halo or Call of Duty, for example, I can buy that, download it and play it straight away.
Straight in. Yeah.
I'll be awful, but I'm playing. Yeah. Whereas with Warhammer, it's like, but you need this. But you need this.
And you've got to do your research beforehand. So we're saying about getting your models, getting them all painted, sitting down, playing the hobby. It's like you can't just get all your models and then be like, oh right, okay, right, let's get the book out, and then the rule book's like this thing, and you're like, oh, page 1. Like rolling it over. You've got to read up on the rules. You know how you need to deploy. You know how your terrain needs to be set up. What models can and can't you bring? Yes. And then that's then getting another player who's doing the exact same thing. And it's quite hard.
The Warhammer shops, you can book in and do tutorial games, and they have like a set of introductory games that build up your skill levels, like teach you the different phases and so on, until you get up to a point where you're playing like, I think it's probably about a Combat Patrol style of game. Yeah. So they're really good. Local gaming stores and gaming clubs will also do the same for you. Like there are people there that will bring you along,
like teach you, learn, educate you.
I think one of the, we talked about the selling issue with GW Warhammer. Like you can't go to a Warhammer shop with no minis. You've got to buy them, build and paint them, and then go and play a game. But if you go to a local gaming club or local gaming store, there are often in-house armies or club armies that you can then try before you buy, which is a great way to do it.
It is.
So as much as we talk about these barriers to entry, there are ways around them.
Definitely is. Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to do it all by yourself.
No. For sure. I mean, for me, I remember I remember this quite clearly. I remember walking in at the end of 9th, because that's when I was still in the hobby, and I was interested in picking up Tyranids. And I remember walking in, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, well if you want to start Tyranids, we've got the codex." And I was like, "Oh no, I do need that." He goes, "Oh, there you go." He goes, "Oh, don't forget, you'll need the supplement that comes with it." Hands me another book. He's like, "Oh, then you need these other things, because obviously that's when they got the synapse stuff or whatever that kind of came out. You need that book too." And so by the end of it, I had 3 books, and each of them are like 25 quid each. Yeah. So already I was up to like 75 quid, and I'm like, no, I might wait until 10th, because this, and obviously again that barrier right there about new people coming in. Yeah. There was a kid coming in being like, I've got 3 books to read. Come on. It can be a bit
the
much.
Space Marine one, in 9th they had a codex, and then there was another codex for each chapter, wasn't there?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just extra expensive.
It is. Now again, they've done a nice reset in 10th, which again, something that is good that they do refresh the rules, everyone off to a clean slate. So that is good that they do. And I do like now that this edition, that they are making it easier, where they're not changing so many abilities, they're actually just adjusting the points now. Yeah. So again, although we're talking about the barriers to entry, I think they are making it easier to combat that negativity.
9th became FAQ hammer to a certain degree.
Goodness,
if you had your codex, which was in some cases out of date as or before it was published, and then there was just reams of other documents that you needed with other rules on.
Exactly.
And you're going to get that in any game. There will be FAQs and rules tweaks, but the fact that it's online now, it's all in one place, isn't it? So
it is.
You can see what's on the app is right.
It's very
in
true.
Theory.
Yeah. For me, getting into the Warhammer, again, very similar to you, I have had very positive experiences since. To be fair, since, I mean, obviously you always get the odd little stories here and there, but fundamentally, I've had very good memories, and I think one of my earliest memories I had of getting into Warhammer was I played Space Hulk back at school.
Great game.
Back in primary school. One of my teachers brought in, was like, look, have the box, does anyone want to play? And I generally thought he didn't think anyone was interested in it, and then suddenly there was about 15 kids wanting to play. So we had obviously it was like 5 Terminators, so each week he was like, right, every one of you is one of those singular Terminators, and he's the Tyranids.
Oh, cool.
So every like 3 weeks it was like your turn to play, and if you weren't playing, then you would come and just watch over people play and give them hints and tips. And I think that was a really good way of getting me into it, because again, the barrier was quite low. You didn't have to, do all this research of rules, because there was only the small rule book for the Space Hulk. Wasn't as many models to paint, and you didn't need to paint them. You didn't need these tape measures, dice, too much dice, and all that sort of stuff. It was very low entry, which was really good for me. And I think from there it was like I could pick up that box set and then start building on top of it to then work up to play a Combat Patrol, or now obviously a full game of 2K list.
I still think the space, I mean, we had Hero Quest, and there was one called Space Crusade, which I think were there were partnerships with MB, I think, MB Games, but they're kind of like gateway drugs to Warhammer. And I still, Space Hulk definitely was one of those as well. And I think there's still room in the hobby for some of those kind of entry level simplified games just to get people in.
It's very true. Another thing for me is, I guess you briefly mentioned it before, but I think just finding the right group of people to play. You mentioned that we've obviously got a nice group of our friends, and I think you do have to have that kind of, at least a couple of people to kind of bounce off, because you could sit there and you could be painting, you could be wanting to play, but there's no one to play with. Now there are a couple of things that you can do, and I did write this down just to kind of give people, because it would be quite nice. But first of all, friend group. If you haven't got friends, tough. But obviously having a friend group is good. You mentioned before, if you don't have so much your friends are into it, go to the Warhammer shop. People play there. The Geek Retreat or Traveling Man. They do little events like that. Even if you search on Facebook, obviously we go to the Wildlings quite often, where we yourself goes quite often. Really good group of people. Again, stuff like that. Find the right group of people. That's the first thing. Another thing, which I haven't done, but a lot of tournament players actually do this, is Tabletop Simulator. I've got a few friends who want to get into playing Tabletop Simulator, and that would reduce the effort of building, painting, reading, dice, meeting up, terrain, space. It gets rid of all that elements because it's just a game online.
That's a brilliant point.
And you still learn the game. You still get to play with models that you enjoy. You can test out other factions before you, as you mentioned before, you want to play before you buy. So this is probably a really good way of doing it. And Tabletop Simulator isn't an expensive game. I reckon it's only like $7.99 or something like that on Steam.
It's quite a good format. Like, it's a high, reasonable quality. It's like a 3D rendering of a battlefield, isn't it? And you literally,
that's it.
It's the same, follows exactly the same rules.
It's got all the rules. Shows everything you need to do, and it's just, again, that's a good way of learning the rules of the game before you buy. So, and again, just like if you don't have anyone to play with because you might live in a very difficult place, very good to still engage with friends and play a hobby that everyone still enjoys.
Yes, and I think
like that.
For people who, some people are more socially outgoing than others. Like you said, I'm the kind of person who will like knock on a stranger's house door and go, rock in and play Warhammer. But
it's pretty dark in here. Is this the place?
It's just me sat on a settee with you guys.
Just speaking to the camera, just there, mate.
That's so taking a dark turn.
Oh goodness! But that's a different part of negativity in the hobby. We'll not get into that one.
But those people that aren't as socially confident, perhaps, then Tabletop Simulator is a brilliant way to go to meet other people and engage in the hobby. That's a really, really good idea. That
it definitely is. And one for the painters out there, because you might be in the hobby but not to play. You might just like to enjoy the models you like seeing and paint them up. I think just actively keeping active on like Reddit, Discord, Facebook groups, just to show off your models and like see what other people are painting, get inspiration from people. I mean, I downloaded and started using Instagram primarily because when I was painting, I was getting a bit like not bored or anything like that, but I was like, I've run out of creativity of like how I want to do this, how I want to do that. So opening up Instagram and just posting progress of my models, I scan through and I'm like, oh, I've gotten so much better from where I started. Or if I hit a wall, I'm like, oh, I tell you what, I'm just going to go look at some Necron models and I'll just see how they're doing things.
Instagram is my favorite out of all of the social media platforms. And even though this was where guy from Midwinter Minis posted on Instagram about this issue about negativity, and ironically, he got some really hateful and negative comments. I mean, most of them are positive, but underneath there are examples of that negativity in the hobby. Yeah. But Instagram largely is a bastion of positivity. Everyone's very supportive and nurturing each other. You will find very often if you, it doesn't matter what level you are at, if you post on there regularly about painting and your passion for the hobby or playing games, whatever it is, people will engage with you, like your posts, you'll gain followers, etc. Not that these metrics are all necessarily, how you should value you engage, but it makes you feel better.
It does.
That there are like-minded people out there, it makes you feel part of something.
Definitely does. And again, like I primarily just use it to see my progress. So again, I don't really, I should be better at it, but I focus too much on the other one. But I don't engage too much on my one. Because again, I really use it just for me to see my progress and to see kind of how I'm getting on.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
If there are people on there who are, I've literally seen posts like from people like, I'm feeling like I'm going to take a break from the hobby because no one seems to be engaging with me, and I don't feel like I'm getting these. Basically, what they're saying is I don't feel like I'm getting as much engagement as I deserve. And
it's hard, isn't it?
If you put so much value on it, then you're always at risk of creating that a negativity spiral for yourself.
You are.
The way you approach it is much more rational, where you use it as a resource tool, a nice way to spend time looking at other people's models, and also document a record of what you've done.
Yeah, I think again, because you can get yourself in a rut of being like, oh, I've not made any progress, because especially when you see like the follower count kind of go up. Some people depend on that kind of going up, and that's what I mean, you mentioned it. Obviously, that's like the metric they want to use, but it's not. It's just the metric is scroll back down on your last few posts, see how far you've come. Like I've massively improved my photo game. I've got much better at taking photos with the lighting, and I'm like, that's like a massive boost to me. I'm like, oh, I've got another like 8 models that I want to take a picture of now, which I'm going to get done, and it's just nice to. Because it rejuvenates you, I think, when you start seeing that sort of progress.
It's a great thing to do, and I think that is ultimately why Instagram could be very positive. On the counterpoint to that is that most of the other Discord's great usually because you're looking in specific areas, but most of or a couple of the other big social media platforms are beyond negative now, and they're quite toxic. So there is a large chunk of Facebook which I'm just walled off from, or from hobby Facebook, because it's just culture wars. Twitter is pointless because there is literally what feels like a handful of people kind of steering a middle course that are using it a bit like they would use Instagram. So just for the crack, or for sharing models, pictures of models, but the rest of it is very, very polarized, and it's just slanging matches. It's not nice.
It's not. And you know what's actually a good thing to do, and if people haven't done it before, probably recommend it, is whack up your Instagram, whack up a few different socials, delete all of your history, right? Just delete it all, get rid of it all, and then what best thing to do is open up Instagram and just scroll through real fast and just find, or obviously you know now what you're searching for, and you now know what you like. Go search for those posts and just like them all. Honestly, just spam your filter, spam your history of all the stuff that you like, and you'll start seeing better. Exactly. You'll start seeing better posts like that. Because as of now, all that history that you've got, all that crap history that you've been searching, Google knows what you've been searching. Get rid of it, and you'll start seeing better posts.
Good.
But yes, another point that you've obviously raised about, does it help retain and grow the community? So that's around negativity, right? Like, does negativity grow a community, or?
Yeah, I think I think, as I said, there are subsects and it feels often, as much as I'm saying like the majority of Twitter is a slanging match, those communities are quite small. And as with any community, most people sit in the middle, and then the numbers dwindle as you get out to the edges. But those voices at the edges are the loudest.
They certainly are.
So certainly Twitter and and large elements of Facebook are not helping to nurture the community, they're helping to polarize it, which is a bad thing.
You almost need to know which platform you need to use for which hobby you're into, effectively, because you mentioned before the Instagram one, really good for us. But you mentioned just there Twitter. I mean, I think we started Twitter, right? And
we have an official Twitter account, and I still post stuff on there, but it's
it's like where we got our first negative comment, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
and we were like, negative.
We had a bit of a discussion on there with somebody that took us to task about third-party content creators, animation. But generally speaking, you have to police yourself, as you said, and try and find ways to ensure that the algorithm is focused on the things that you enjoy rather than the things that you don't like of the hobby.
Yeah.
And that way you'll create a positivity cycle.
Definitely.
But you raised a good question as well when we were talking about this in the planning meetings, was whose job is it to grow or nurture a community?
Absolutely, right. Like, whose job actually is it? Is it the person who it comes from? So is it Games Workshop? Is it the actual hobbyists themselves to kind of do this? Now, personally, I think it's both. I think it has to be. I think the idea has to be given from Games Workshop and then molded by us, because we're going to be the people to be adding that content to. So like, one of the things I do like that GW does do is they promote the hashtags. So they've got like the hashtag community and hashtag Games Workshop. So any models that you paint, and they also post this on the website, any new models that you paint, they tell you that to specifically use this hashtag.
Yes.
I quite like it, because it's like, all right, great. So now I know where to go to find like-minded people.
If you're on Instagram and you're looking for stuff, I mean, you can search obviously by faction, like you could hashtag Necron or Necrons. But if you hashtag Warhammer community, all one word, that will open up a whole new, a whole world for you.
It'll just bring up the audience for you, and then you'll be connected to other people in the similar boat.
And they're pretty good at, they have a Warhammer community pages, like profile pages on most social media, and they're pretty good at engagement as well. They are, They will reply and talk to people.
They certainly do, and obviously they do like the Meta Watch videos as well. They're pretty active on their YouTube, their Twitch. Obviously, they stream all their events as well. Yes. So again, they're building that community by engaging with her and getting everyone involved in like obviously upcoming releases as well. Yeah. Which is really good. I really like that sort of stuff. Do you reckon anyone else, like for you, who do you reckon the responsibility most falls on? Is it the audience, or?
I think it has to be a bit of both. And excuse me, I'm going to cough a second. I think when this polarization issue first came out, and there was this problem, challenge of gatekeeping, which I don't really want to get into massively on this because it's a whole topic by itself. For sure. But GW eventually was backed into a corner. Normally GW just like says, here's a hobby, get on with it, play it your way type thing, and they actually had to come out and make a statement to say Warhammer is for everyone, and you people who are trying to say Warhammer isn't for everyone, you're not welcome. Which is, for GW, that is a big deal, because they generally like to be beige as hell, and just let you know, we'll be a nice neutral color, and everyone can project onto us what they want. So in that respect, GW did take a stand on it, and also we've definitely seen that some real leaders stand up in the hobby. So particularly one that I'm very supportive of is Stephen Box of Vanguard Tactics. So one of the things that he has made, he's planted his banner, if you like, is on better sportsmanship and reducing toxicity in the tournament scene, particularly.
Right? Yeah. We've mentioned that bit later on before as well, which is crazy. Yeah, because obviously in the tournament scene, I think people do have that, I guess, pre-perception of like, oh, tournaments, it's going to be negative, it's going to be toxic, because like people are there to win. But again, we'll talk about it more later on. But our experiences so far hasn't been that at all. Yeah,
and there is a school of thought about how these images build up. I think if you went back into the hobby 20, 30 years or so, there was bigger problems because of the player base it attracted. We were mega nerds, and within them there was definitely people who were win at all costs. And there still is elements of that, but it's a lot better than it was.
Definitely is, yeah.
But because people like Stephen Box have took such a firm stand and a public stand on it, that is not giving these people any space. And we get things like Hellstorm Mikey doing that amazing video about the tournament dice in the toilet,
the cheating dice thing.
So from an outsider's perspective, if you just pieced all that together, you would think that it was a terrible scene and we were all a bunch of cheating bastards. But it's called the cherry picking fallacy. So
it is,
it's a common thing is where, and again, algorithms play a part in this. Is if you engage with Hellstorm Mikey's video and then YouTube algorithm picked that up and then showed you 3 or 4 more videos about Warhammer cheating
scandals and stuff like that.
At the end of that week, you would have built up a perception that this problem was much bigger than it is.
He's right. Yeah, can't speak, but exactly right. Yeah, I think just you've got to be careful on like what sort of stuff, because it is good engaging this sort of stuff, but like if you engage in it, then you will be shown more of it, and it just again, as we say, spirals from there.
Yes, but what about you? I mean, who is it? Do we have a responsibility as all hobbyists? Do we have a responsibility to self-police, if you like?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's like you've just got to be positive. Like, I mean, I'm a positive person anyways, but like, just like when you have new people into the hobby, again, we've been to tournaments before, and I've, I remember my first tournament being super nervous about going, and then I remember meeting people and everyone was just so nice. Everyone was just so kind, being like, oh, look, don't worry. This is like, I was like not too sure where the table numbers were, and people were just helpful, being like, oh, look, just down there, mate. This is table number such and such down there. First person I ever played. It was like his second or third tournament as well. So again, he was relatively new as well, and he was like, yeah, look, mate, I was there. Like, I was in the same place like 2 months ago. Don't worry, first game's gonna be fine. Funny enough, the first game I ever played was then on a live stream, which didn't help the nerves whatsoever. But fundamentally, it was still a really good day. And even when I was up there playing and having those, obviously, the organisers talk about my game, they were still very kind on screen as well. They were talking about it and being like, any questions you need, give us a shout. If you need any rules clarification, we're right here. So it was like I was getting like private treatment, which is probably really good for me for being the first time into it.
It gives you unrealistic expectation. Like, you got the VIP treatment in the very first
My head
game.
Grew so much. I was like, oh, I'm so good. I'm such a good painter.
Interestingly, my second game at that tournament was against a guy who has. I was going to. You have to be careful how you say this, because you could say he's a notorious cheat, but that would imply that he's still cheating.
Yeah, true.
But he was caught live on stream at a big tournament cheating in the past.
Right.
And he did break the rules in the game where I played. So, and I called him on it because he was playing Necron, so it was the only way I would. If he'd been in another faction, I never would have known.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, you can't do that because I know you can't do that because I play Necrons. And he's like, well, I've measured it and I can. And if it hadn't been my first tournament and I was more confident, I would have got a judge.
Yeah. I think that's another thing as well. I'm sure we'll just talk about the tournaments there now because we're on the topic. But so I think like again, like I've had experiences where people have like maybe said a rule or I thought it was wrong. And again, I think it's all about just challenging it in the right way. You don't need to be like, oh, actually, like, you don't need to be like that. It's all about like, I'll tell you what, where's that written? Can I have a little look at that whilst you're doing that? And asking it like that is so much more, no, you can't do that. That's not in the rules, because you might do a rule and I'm like, oh, actually, is that right? And I'll never like call you out and be like, oh, Dan, you're trash. Blah, blah, blah. I'll be like, oh, where's that written? Can I have a little look? Is that really how it is? Because I then say, oh, I'll tell you what, that would actually really benefit me. Can I read that real fast? And then you'll show me and we might then clarify it. And then I now know for the future, or it's like, oh, now we both know that what you're trying to do is then wrong.
I think that's a fantastic point, is that how we approach challenging these things can be done in the right in a positive way as well, rather than a negative or accusatory way.
No,
because all of the mistakes I've made on in events or when in games have been genuine errors where I've misread a rule or just not got it.
How many rules are out there, right? And I think and I think that's another thing to mention, right? How many rules are out there? No one's going to remember them all. So of course people are going to get stuff wrong. Is that them being negative or toxic in a tournament? No. It's simply put, people will get stuff wrong. You'll get stuff wrong. And again, it's all about approaching those conversations in the right way.
Yes.
Asking them at a point of view of learning opposed to blaming. So it's like, again, tell you what, where's that written? Can I have a little look at that? Or it's like, obviously everyone now has the data sheets or the data cards. It's like, oh, here's my data card. Do you want to have a little read of it whilst I'm moving it and I'll continue the game? Yes. It doesn't stop the game. And again, it's all about that mentality of learning opposed to telling people no, basically, in my eyes.
I did find the first tournament was a very steep learning curve. Like I got my arse handed to me in my second and third game, properly rinsed.
Really bad,
And that isn't a pleasant experience. But a tournament is a tournament. Like that, your opponent is going to try and max,
mid-max the crap out of their list and then go for the max points.
They want to go, exactly. So again, if you're a sensitive soul, then perhaps that isn't for you. But equally, I don't mean that in a disparaging or derogatory way. Because there are people who don't like that experience for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Some people will say, like we understood it was going to be like getting absolutely spanked was going to be part of the learning curve of developing as a player. And there kind of is that mentality of tournaments at the moment, like well, just get good.
If you're bad, just be better.
Have you considered trying to be better?
Exactly. When you roll them dice, just aim. You want to aim for the 5s and 6s, guys. All right, don't go for the 1s and 2s. It's simple math. At the end of the day.
I did think though, is there a market for an intermediate step? So like non-ITC point, almost like not necessarily even beginner, but beginner to intermediate. So there is a step between playing casual games with your friends to a nationwide tournament scene where you learn how to play the game in a less intimidating atmosphere and can still enjoy tournaments. I mean, we've been to events like that at the Wildlings, for example, but I'm just wondering if it should have a bit more of a structure in the same way as, say, UKTC does. Yeah. Should there be almost like a UKTC Intermediates League underneath that? So you're not scoring tournament points, so you won't get sharks in the tank. No. But there is the opportunity to still roll dice, have fun, almost that casual competitive element that we were talking about.
I think it's really good because people do want that. People want to learn the game, and people want to get, like, for us, I think that would have been really good for us before going into a big tournament scene. Because I mean, I was super nervous going in, and I did have this like negative like impact, being like, oh, when I go to this table, if I might get paired with people who are there just to win, and the game would suck. And if I'm honest, I think I had some of my best games at tournaments, basically, opposed to playing with friends, because I'm learning loads. The people that I play with are also there to learn and just to have fun. Yes. And then just playing different armies as well. I think we briefly mentioned this before. Yeah, you're right. We're both Necron players. We used to play Necrons v Necrons, which obviously we already know the army. Playing Sisters of Battle or Gene Stealer cults, it's just good to play against them, to learn the hobby. Something that I want to bring up as well about tournaments is I think there's like almost, even people who want to go to tournaments and enjoy going to tournaments, I think people still have this like negativity around the higher up the tournament you go in games, the more toxic it becomes. Yes. Because obviously if you can become the top tables, well, people are there to win. They've got a really strong list, they've got a really good meta, and they want to win. But personally, I've not experienced that directly myself. And if I'm honest, I've mentioned it before, but I've had some of my best games at the lower bracket. When I've been demolished at a tournament and I'm on like the lower tables, the guy who's also there knows he's been playing absolute dog. I've been playing like dog. And then just having a good giggle about it, being like, wow, we're bad today, aren't we? Like, it's like, oh yeah, 5-0. The
vibe at the bottom end is definitely, at tournaments, is definitely better.
It's just, I reckon it's so much more funny. Yeah, it's just so good.
I've met some very nice people who you would definitely like go out for a drink with, and that who are very good players. But it doesn't detract from the fact that they are there. They are there to win. Yeah. Then they're in the right way. Yeah. But it's still not as much fun as playing somebody that's a bit more relaxed, who is obviously just there for the crack.
That's it. Exactly right. For me, like say when I was there, the highest I've ever been was I was on the top table. Yes. Of the 1,200 point list that we played.
Yeah, the 1,300 point ones. Yeah. The triple monolith list.
The triple monolith list. So I got on the top table of that, and it was so casual. The guy who was playing knights, and we rocked up, shook hands, had a little discussion beforehand, and then as we're talking, we looked at the time and was like, oh, we were meant to start the game 20 minutes ago, and we were just chatting away, having a good time, and his friend walked up to us and was like, this is the most casual top table game I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. And then because obviously he was playing knights and I was playing monoliths. We didn't have very many monoliths.
Yeah, deployment's like a minute.
It was
each turn is like
boom, boom, boom. So it was really casual, really fun. And then he won the game by turn 2. Like I already knew I'd lost by that point, but I still played because again I'm there to have fun. I'm there to enjoy it. And he says he goes, and like, and the thing is, he was stomping us, and he couldn't do anything differently. He was just like, that's gonna attack that, and just rolled, and it was rolling really well. And then just got through all my armor.
It's a bad matchup for he had knights and you had 3 monoliths.
3 monoliths. It was going to be bad. But the thing is, I guess as well, like I knew it was going to be a bad matchup. I didn't bring a meta list, so my mentality going in was, I'm just going to go see how far I can get. And I got really far, and I was like, I'm on top tables. This is great. And like again, I knew I was going to lose, but I wasn't like, oh man, I'm going to lose. Oh, this sucks. Bad matchup. Oh, can't believe he's bringing knights. Why is everyone bringing knights for? wasn't like that at all. I was just like, this is a good game.
Yeah.
That's a hard matchup.
Yeah.
I'll see how far I can get. And then
that's right. Yeah. And that is another element of like and it does make a difference. You know, you can, there are rewards for sportsmanship at a lot of these tournaments, which is good to see.
Yeah.
And there are, obviously, even if you lose, you try and score as many points as you can, try and use it as a learning experience, treat it as a puzzle to solve or a challenge to overcome.
Yeah,
well, I'm in a sticky spot here. What can I do to try and alleviate that? Yeah,
exactly. What about yourself in tournaments? Have you seen like any much negativity? Have you had any negative vibes in tournaments before?
Just that guy, like I said, and I actually posted about it in a Necron group afterwards, just to double check that I wasn't. You know, it was on my mind because I'm like, I'm sure he's got that wrong, and he's insisting he got it right. So I asked the group, and they were like, somebody Googled him somebody looked him up on BCP and went, "Nah, actually, mate, you know, this isn't the first. This isn't the first time that he's been involved in one of these controversies." Yeah. But then he found that post on the Necron group, and then sent me like walls of text on Messenger, which was not a pleasant experience either. So there are.
Because the thing is, that wasn't you being negative. You were just being like, "Oh, hey, is this right?
Can I double check?
Can I check this?" And it was everyone else in the comments being like, "Oh, this guy's notorious." Blah blah blah. So it wasn't you who like.
I didn't even know who he was. No.
You were just asking the question. And
and that's, even though that was an interesting experience for me. And again, maybe it comes down to outlook, but. That to me kind of enriched my experience of the hobby. It's like ticking a box. It's like, all right, I've had that experience now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to play.
It's like a bingo card. I need to have a negative time in a tournament.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it didn't impact the game. It wouldn't make any difference to the game, which is why it was weird, because he was a very good player and he was going to beat me anyway, and he did beat me anyway by a comfortable margin. And he could have stomped me, but he didn't. I could see that he was kind of holding back a little bit. Once he'd won the game by turn 2, he kind of held back a little bit to allow me to score some points.
Yeah,
and feel like I'd done something, which was a nice thing to do.
I think that's actually really good there. A little point there. I think even if it was yourself in the other boat, if you went to a game and you knew you had a much better matchup, and let's say you're playing like one that was maybe inexperienced or maybe new out of the hobby. Don't destroy them. Give them yes, it's a tournament, so yes, you're there for points. I understand, but just go easy, because if you destroy someone in a tournament, this might be their first tournament. They might not want to come back.
You do get this issue in some local game stores, though most of them tend to police themselves. Some clubs, but most of them tend to police themselves. But I've been to 40k clubs where there are. There's very little support for newer players, and you will rock up with I've got a new faction and I've just finished painting 2,000 points with the Necrons, and they're like, well, I've got a meta list of here, and then I'm going to whack you off the table by turn 3, and I'm like, well, this is my 3rd game in 9th edition. Thanks
for my experience. Let me get my bingo card out.
That's another one. But most clubs police these issues, and most clubs you'll find have got tiers where the competitive players will tend to play against themselves. There is, but I've seen it happen in clubs where there will be somebody who brings that competitive mindset to new players and casual players and just smashes them off the table, and eventually the issue is no one will want to play 40k with you if you do that.
Well, that's it. I mean, as you found out on the post before, people talk. People find out online. You post that question, people found out who the person was. People talk online. So if you're negative, I'm sorry, mate, but you're probably going to get brought up in conversation, and you're going to be at the butt end of a joke if you are bad. At the end of the day. Now, I would want to say, though, as well, on the back of that, is that I do think it does take 2 to tango when it comes to negativity on a game. Very good. There was there's plenty of videos online where it's like top table arguments and such. And, for me, it's just, you're there to play the game. So just play the game. Like, if one person's being negative, just be the better. I know it's like, I feel like a school teacher. Just be the better person.
Yes.
Just be like, look, whatever. I'm just going to play the game that I'm here for. I'm going to do my stuff. I'm going to do my rules. I'll answer your questions. And if he's sitting there complaining, let him complain. And I mean, it's not that you should bring this to a tournament, but we don't know what's happening. You might have had a bad day. You might have done something else. Something else might
you never
have
know what's going on in somebody else's life. That's very true.
Exactly.
And so I do. The judges are there as well, not to be like telling on teacher. So sometimes you just a judge. you don't need to necessarily go to a judge and grass somebody up and say he's being a knobhead or whatever. You can say, look, we're having a discussion about this. Can you come and adjudicate? That is what a judge is there to do. Yeah, and that will often. The judges are usually some of them are paid, some of them are volunteers. They're a fantastic bunch of people for doing that. But they also, this is relatively small communities, and the numbers of edgelords in it are small, so they know them anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because they all talk again. It's easily accessible to find out who you are. Yeah, because it's all on the BCP app, so your details are all there. Unfortunately,
if you have, it's very quick. You can very quickly get a reputation for being a pain in the arse at these kind of things.
And people just don't want to play. No, because you'll see the name on Discord, and it's just like, well, I don't want to play you. I've heard you do this, you do that, you do this.
But it does take two to tango, and also, but I would, if there is an issue, and I would frame it that way to the judge rather than say this guy's being mean to me.
It's like he said nasty words. Yeah. He said, I don't believe in the Emperor.
Take it to them as an issue. Say, we're not sure how to resolve this. Can you come and help?
Yeah, for sure. And that's what they're there for. At the end of the day, like they're there to rule out any issues outside of the game, but like rule wise and player wise. Because if you don't get on their radar and this person comes across maybe someone new to the hobby, maybe even because kids play the game, some younger people, so it'd be nasty for those people to say stuff to younger kids as well. So get on people's radars. I think it's a good shout.
Yeah, very much so.
Anything else for tournament wise that you can think of?
No, I think that's all good.
Yeah, covered most of it, right? What about, here's a one. Players and painters, is there a difference in toxicity that people might bring up?
Yeah, massively. There's a massive difference between, and a lot of Instagram is painters. So I want to before this, I think the best way to frame this is in my eyes, I think there is a pyramid of hobbyists, and at the top of that I would put the pro or semi-pro people who that's where we are. Top of that pyramid, top of the food chain. But again, someone like a Stephen Boxer literally makes his living from playing Warhammer and teaching people how to play Warhammer. And so they would be at the top. Then underneath them, I think you've got your tournament veterans. Yeah. And then underneath them, you've got your casual competitives, which is where I certainly am at the moment. Then underneath that is casual gamers. And then underneath that is painters. And then underneath that is readers or video gamers, like people that don't actually buy or collect any models, but are still in the hobby. And each time we move down that pyramid, the size of the base in that segment is much bigger. Yeah. So by the time you get down, like pro and semi-pro, at the very top of the top there's a tiny number of people that applies to. Tournament scene, again, is slightly more, but not that many people that you consider to be the tournament regulars or whatever. Yeah. The casual competitive is a much broader base, and beneath that, though, is an awful lot of casual gamers, of people that might have been into the hobby for 20, 30 years, maybe play a couple of games a year or a few games a year because they're playing other platforms and that kind of thing. And then beneath that, so people that don't even play the game, is painters. And there's loads more of them, I believe, than there are people that actually play the game. Because it's good fun, isn't it? It is. People just enjoy collecting and the models and painting them. And then there is also, it's come to light recently, is another subset of those who consider themselves to be hobbyists, but are more interested in the lore side and the Black Library books or playing the video games, but don't have no interest in the tabletop either, or even in buying and painting some of them. Yeah,
I think it's interesting because I think the toxicity or like the negativity that might come from kind of all those ones, there's two big ones that I can think of. Is one, rules, because painters, obviously the lore books people, as you mentioned, and then the players are all affected by that. If the lore sucks or the books suck, then that means less models to that are going to be coming out. There's going to be less players painting them. There's going to be less players playing them. That's kind of a big thing. So if there's something like a big rules change, you'll kind of get the majority of toxicity from those kind of people. Yes. Along with scalpers. If scalpers take up models, then that means players can't play them.
That's a big issue. We're starting to see toxicity on this scarcity issue is causing toxicity towards influencers as well, content creators. People are like, why have you got this Deathwing box when I can't buy it? Yeah. Why should you get it for free? Exactly. Well, because because those people have grafted to build following, and it's cheaper for GW to send them a box than it is to do advertising in other channels. It's just a form of advertising.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
It's focusing your energy and your negativity on the wrong people.
Yeah. It certainly is. Yeah. What about the news from GW? Do people overreact? Are people overreactive in the community?
I think as we talked about this sort of polarizing nature of social media certainly before, and a lot of our hobby group in jokes are about how bad GW is at certain elements of the game.
Yeah,
they've almost become a meme in their own right.
That's true, actually. Yeah,
because they realistically they do get a lot. We've talked about this on the podcast, for example. You could very easily say that when 10th launched and it was a mess, like it was so imbalanced, it was ridiculous. Like how could you launch a game in that state?
It's true.
And it was mad. But because we know GW, the player base kind of went, yeah, this is bonkers, but we half expected it.
That's bad in itself, though, right?
It is, but then equally on the other side of that, and we've praised them for this, is that the design team under Stu Black went, "Oh no, this is not good," and immediately jumped on it and fixed it.
Yeah. They've been much better intent than they have in other previous editions.
The game's more balanced than it's ever been in terms of meta play, competitive play.
No, that is true.
So there's. But things like the website surprised me. Like, I honestly don't understand why there have not been more riots online or more negativity from content creators in terms of the issues. And it might just be because it's building to a head. But if you think back to Warhammer Fest, the content creators that went to that tried to put a really positive spin on it, because that's partly what they have to. That's how it's the transactional nature of being invited to these things, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true,
and that's not everyone expects that. The fan base was legit annoyed about QFest, and for largely for good reason. There was we were lucky on the third day to get a practice game of like preview game of 10th, which is fantastic,
lovely,
but there was hundreds, if not thousands, of people that couldn't get in the queues to do that. It just couldn't get a game.
The end of the queue was a 3-hour wait.
Yeah.
And then even past that point, there was people waiting. Yeah. So again, you were just like, nah, not for me.
There is, when they get something really badly wrong like that, there is a lot of salt online, and I think that's justified.
Oh, yeah.
Where you will often see unjustified salt is in the faction groups on social media.
Oh, yeah, they're riddled with it, yeah.
Yeah, they are. So everyone is just like, all of the time, your faction is the worst, and, I can't believe they've done this.
Yeah.
So when the codex comes out, there will be a bunch of, or it gets previewed, there will be a bunch of people for that faction who will complain.
Yeah.
So there is in that case there is issues. We've talked about FOMO and scalpers in terms of scarcity is a big problem, and that GW, they're talking about building another factory, but I don't understand why the wheels turn so slow. Like, the scarcity has been an issue for years, and they should have identified that and started building, announced the factory build in 2018, not now.
Because it's going to take X amount of years.
It's going to take that time to get it up to speed. Yeah.
Yeah. No, completely agree. I think just like for me, at least, anyways, with we do overreact far too much. And again, is that because drama gets more clicks, as we mentioned before? Is it easier to complain than it is to praise GW?
I think so, and I think again, there's been psychological studies done on this, that is something like, I can't remember the exact metric, but it's something like 10 or 20 times more likely to go onto somebody's website or Facebook page with a complaint than you would do to say you did a fantastic job. Thank you.
To be fair, like I didn't go on the GW website. I've been on it for ages. I only went on it because I heard so much negativity about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what's everyone complaining about? Went onto it and I was like, oh my God, like what? Yeah. Where are all the pictures gone? Why is the server skulls all over the place? I did go on it just to see what it was like, and I think again, like, does negativity drive it growing the community in a way? Because it's like, well, I went on the website, which I haven't been on for a good while, because I use Element Games, and maybe that's why we didn't see as much of an outlash or backlash from it. It's because everyone was using third-party websites already.
If you can buy it from somebody else, particularly
at a discount, of course.
Yeah, you can get it. Number one, you can get it at discounts. Number two, their websites are much easier to navigate and to find what you want and to buy it.
Yeah,
and the service is good. The GW, it just isn't. But GW's also realised a long time ago two things. The first one is that their shareholders don't care as long as the revenue and profits keep going up,
which it is. Yeah.
And the second one is that the player base will complain but will buy your shit anyway.
Yeah.
So Primaris Marines is a great example. Launched in the mid 2010s, I think it was 2016, somewhere around there, and there was an enormous amount of hatred and vitriol for it. Yeah. Loads of people are like, I'm jacking this hobby in, I'm never going to play again, blah blah blah. There was somebody that set fire to his, I think did a video of him setting fire to his Marines or something like that. It's terrible stuff. But
again, overreacting
is
where
huge
we come
overreaction
from that one.
But the reality was the next 3 years after that, GW sales massively increased.
Yeah.
It brought new people into the hobby and did exactly what they wanted it to do.
True.
And as much as we moan about their website, we're still buying their products.
Yeah, we are, and we will continue to buy it because it's good.
And we haven't got anywhere else to go.
No, that's true. That's true.
There are
3D printers are coming up now, though. You know,
that ultimately that is the biggest threat to GW's business model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and ultimately they will have to move to STL files. I think that's
eventually
just how it's going to have to.
Yeah, that'll be good. Another thing that I was going to mention as well was about like this negativity and like I guess just like inside of like overreacting to GW is that even when they're doing positive stuff, we act negatively. And I say we because people do think it. One of the examples that we've got is when GW gave out the bonus. They increased the bonus from like 1,500 to 2,500.
Yes,
that's massive. That's a great bonus to get. You know, for just doing your job as normal. Obviously, there's a whole situation around their kind of their pay structure as it is, anyways. But like that bonus at the end of the year is still a good thing that GW didn't have to do.
Yes,
but they've done it anyways. But like you're seeing that, and some of the first comments that people were making were, "Yeah, well, they earn enough." Like GW, their profit margins were massive; they can afford it. It's like, hold on, they're doing something good, and you were already being negative on the good thing that they've done. It's almost like they can't win.
Yeah, I think there is. Well, that's the thing. Like we talk about it in a joking sense, in that they become a bit of a meme. But it's kind of from a place of love. Like we're hopeless addicts to this hobby, you know. We love it. The passion's very strong.
Yeah,
and we poke fun at GW when it makes mistakes, but we don't hate them for it.
Well, that's it. Like, are we, because we love the hobby, are we not allowed to critique the hobby that we love?
That's exactly. Yeah, I mean, you are, but I think there is. And again, some content creators entirely exist to bash GW, and that's how they make their living.
Yeah,
and that then feeds into social media as well about perceptions of GW.
Yeah, and again, they get the clicks, they get the views. So that's what the videos people see, which just sucks.
But as any consumer has the right to criticize the company that they buy, or any hobbyist has the right to criticize the hobby that they're in.
But again, I think it's like doing it in the right way as well, right? It's like, look, this could be bad. This is bad. X, Y, Z. This is how it could be better. That's how I like to see things.
Yes.
When people complain, I don't like seeing why they suck. Is that this? Make it. Give us an insight of what your thoughts are on why you think it could be better.
Yes. There's no point just saying this is trash and I hate it and
goodbye.
When you need to say what is the issue? And
what's the issue?
And also how could it be fixed?
Exactly right. Exactly.
And I mean, things like the website issue, they had another company in to build that website and they couldn't build it. And then they ended up, it's like one of those video games that's in development for like 6 or 7 years. You know, when it comes out, it's not going to be very good.
A few games out there like that. Yeah.
If a game gets significantly delayed, you know, it's in trouble.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was a bit like that. So in that respect, I think there are some quick fixes that GW can make in terms of improving the website, but there is with large corporations like that, particularly with ones that have got investors, they sometimes like to hide their mistakes. A bit like we talked about with Warhammer Fest. They've never come out and said Warhammer Fest was a disaster.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't the experience that it should have been, and therefore we're going to work on making it better. They just very quietly cancelled it this year.
Yeah.
And they've just, I think at LVO, they've just announced a new partnership with, I think it's ITC, which is one of the big tournament.
It is,
body, and which sounds to me, I need to do some more digging, but it looks like that's also them holding their hands up and saying maybe we're not very good at events.
It's like a quiet apology, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like they've not owned up to the mistakes, but they've been like, this is what we're doing, and this is what we're doing better.
very much an element of that in corporate culture, in particularly in limited in PLCs that are like listed companies.
Yeah.
And I think the website is going to be it's in danger of being one of those where they just pretend that everything's fine. It's like that meme of the little dog typing in the house on fire
around it. Yeah. But like saying that though, like because I think people at home and myself included are thinking now, like, well, why haven't they announced that? If that's what their intention was, why haven't they? Like, why aren't they announcing? Oh, we're not going to do One Fast this year. We're going to partner with another company to make it better next year. But in my head, I'm also thinking, is that not just a really smart move to reduce that toxicity?
Yes.
Because if you put a post or a YouTube video out there being like, sorry, we're not doing this anymore, we're going to do it this way, I can see the comments being like, yeah, you messed up on Warhammer Fest, it was trash, make it better, I don't want to see this, I want to see that. So them avoiding talking about it and just doing something automatically better is almost a better way to avoid it.
There's two sides to that. You're right in that it not saying anything limits the opportunity for loads of angry comments.
Yeah.
But equally, I think increasingly in a digital age as consumers, we expect transparency. Like if you think back to like 20 years ago to parcels or whatever, you ordered something online and it turned up when it turned up. Whereas now you want like, right, when do I want it to turn up? And I need to be able to track that parcel so I can make sure I'm in or something, etc. There's a much higher degree of transparency and customer information.
There is,
and the same in this hobby, there is no place for GW to hide because the scrutiny is so intense. People will leak stuff like the Dark Angels Codex, etc. They can't hide from these things. So in my view, it's better to be honest with the fan base and say, we're cocked up on this. We know we did.
Like ownership.
But we're going to trust us. We're going to make it better. Yeah. And just do that.
Makes sense. What about it's not all doom and gloom? What you're thinking?
Yeah, I think, it isn't, is it? I mean, overall, massively, like over 99% of all of my experiences in the hobby has been that it's welcoming, it's friendly, and it's accessible.
Yeah.
It's largely full of not just like good people, but really lovely people. I think the player base in general are really nice people.
No, I agree.
I think it's all
most experience that we've had have just been all good.
Yeah, and it can be a wider force for good as well. So there's some we've mentioned them before, but there's the guys at Rally Point who are doing events at Warhammer World to raise money for mental health charities, for example.
Yeah,
we've got people, our fellow Northeasterner Kerry K-Legs on Instagram, who's part of a fundraising initiative every year, like 2K for 2K, where they raise money for mental health charities.
Really nice stuff.
Yeah, those kind of stuff is that kind of stuff is
lovely
really,
to see.
Yeah, it's that shows that the hobby can rally around. There's an event coming up in our region in the Northeast I think it's in September, Northeast Gaming Expo, which is all the profits are going to go to an animal rescue charity.
Nice.
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really
so that kind of stuff, there's an awful lot. If you go and look there, the community is not only largely a positive community, it is also becoming a force for good in the wider community.
Definitely. Very nice. No, for me, I think literally just like, just be nice. We all enjoy the hobby, learn from each other, get on with everyone.
Yeah.
I mentioned it before, but like, the hobby is what we make the hobby what it is today, so make it fun. That's my takeaway. That's my quote of the year, I would say.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. It's a bit like that old analogy, like inside you are two wolves. They're not space wolves because they're just fairies in power armor. Don't be a space wolf. But you can choose, and the hobby is so rich and diverse and broad that if you choose to be approach it in a positive manner, you can find like-minded people out there and create those kind of virtuous circles. So yeah, stay away from that negativity if you can.
Definitely. Spot on. Anything else you want to bring up?
No, I really enjoyed this chat. Yeah. It's been probably a little bit longer than we were initially anticipating, so thank you for staying with us. But it's a topic that is close to both our hearts, I think, isn't it?
And I think thanks for Midwinter Minis bringing it up. I think it's a good topic, and I think more people should be talking about it.
Yeah, we do need to have more of these conversations.
And I think we need to improve on the toxicity in the hobby as well. I think it's there. I think it could be not fully gotten away.
No, I mean, it infects all elements of hobbying. Like my God, like Call of Duty chat lobbies or something.
Only the strongest can survive in that chat.
Yeah. So don't come away from this thinking that this is a major problem in the hobby.
Nope.
It is something that we still need to address. It is much better than it was. Overall, overwhelmingly, it's a positive hobby.
Definitely.
But it doesn't mean that there isn't more still that we can all do to make it better.
What I would love to see is what are people's stories about negativity that they've seen, but also positives of what they've seen. And if you're going to post one of those, I want a story of both.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea. Yeah,
not just one. I want to see 2 posts on there. But no, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe and all that. Hey!
Yeah. Things are going really well. So keep engaging, keep liking and subscribing. It really means a lot to us. Thank you.